Like, who are you, lol? Bitch, I'm Charli XCX. Who the fuck are you? Anyway. Let's ride. Let's ride. Let's ride. Let's ride.
Hello everyone, welcome back to this little corner of the internet that we've got here. If you're new, hi, my name's Anishna. It is lovely to have you joining us today. If you've come back, well, this is blossoming into quite a friendship, isn't it? Thank you for coming back. If you haven't guessed by the title already, we are going to be talking about somebody who is very dear to my little heart, somebody who changed my life very recently. You could say we're going to be discussing this person, but I think a way more appropriate term is fangirling about the pop princess to slay all pop princesses, the music girlie that you did not know you needed, the one, the only, the lady who needs no introduction, Miss Charli XCX.
It's Charli, baby.
I'm high voltage, self-destructive, and also legend. Gay rights!
I have genuinely been absolutely itching to talk about Charli XCX and, you know, spread the good word. And why is that? Well, let's say it together, children. Anishna is nothing if not a Charli XCX stan.
Can I lie? Can I fucking lie?
From talking about why Charli XCX is so important to me and why I think she's such an incredible artist, I kind of went on this journey of realizing that I just really want to encourage whoever's watching this video to step out of your music comfort zone, because what I found when I started listening to Charli XCX is it literally was such an invigorating experience to just be completely exposed to this whole new world of really incredibly talented people who are doing some innovative things when it comes to music. I've kind of noticed that there's been a lot of debate at the moment, just publicly but also within the music industry, about how like music's boring and it's not what it used to be. And I used to definitely fall in that camp of just being like, I'm not excited about any new music. The things that are hitting the charts just aren't hitting it for me. Songs are kind of being made now to go viral on platforms like TikTok. However, it's just not the case that music is growing stagnant and people aren't doing fun and interesting things. Beyond taking away from this video that you should be standing and putting some respect on Miss Charli XCX's name when it comes to the pop music industry, I genuinely also want this video to kind of open up the dialogue about what pop music is kind of turning into and how these artists are really shaping not only what we can enjoy to be music, but what music can actually sound like.
Congregation, I said, can I get an amen? Amen.
Now that that's that on that, let's get into the video. So how did I, this little one right here, become indoctrinated into the Charliverse? Well, I'm super disappointed and ashamed, frankly, to admit that it only was early this year. And with that confession, I will say, comes a lesson to you all that it is never too late. It is never too late to jump on this train with me. Not only is my boyfriend, but all of his housemates as well, massive Charli XCX stans. While I was living with my boyfriend during lockdown of last year, without fail, one of Charli XCX's vinyls would be on at some point in the day in somebody's room. In this sense, she basically like involuntarily seeped into my subconsciousness, but it was always in the background, and that was because I was specifically making sure that I was not succumbing to these listening parties. And you may be wondering, like, why is that? There is one word that I can tell you to describe my state of mind regarding Charli XCX at that point, and it's an ugly word, and that is jealousy. Because my boyfriend is so obsessed with Charli XCX, it just kind of meant that by default to begin with, I was not, which is so stupid. Please don't ever let that be the reason why you don't like appreciate someone's art or something. So anyway, back to the story. Here is my boyfriend trying to fully like bless and baptize my ears with Charli XCX's music, and I wasn't having an inch of it. And then before I knew it, one of my really close friends, I started seeing that she was listening to Charli XCX's music. It was like all she was listening to on Spotify. She had a dedicated Charli XCX playlist, and I was like, damn, this boon clap lady is getting everyone. So at this point, I was definitely intrigued, but not yet willing to fully go in and listen to her music. When did I get converted? I would argue I got converted the same way a lot of people have great epiphanies about music. on a road trip. So my boyfriend and I went to Coolangatta in February, and Coolangatta is quite far from Sydney. My boyfriend was like, can we listen to a Charli XCX album? And I was like, look, it's an 8-hour drive. Let's do it. Why not? So we listened to her self-titled album, which is kind of her third official studio album. For any of you Charlie's Angels out there, you'll know that it's not exactly everyone's favorite album. It's kind of deemed the most mainstream of the ones that we count within her discography. And so as a result, for some of you, it might be like a weird choice as to why we chose to listen to that first. I think ultimately it was just a really good ease-in for her music. It still had quintessential elements of Charli, but was kind of refined for the mainstream to be palatable and just a good kind of gateway drug to her music. Y'all, as soon as I heard Gone for the first time, I myself was gone. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That song is to this day still my favorite Charli XCX song, and possibly one of my, well, not possibly, it's definitely one of my favorite songs ever, but it's possibly my favorite. From then on, my friends, the rest is genuinely history. I listened to Charli XCX on constant repeat. If you get that, you get that. If you don't, you don't. I basically listened to Charli and nothing else for months straight, and this still continues. I will say, weirdly enough, this is not a unique experience. When I was chatting to other people about, you know, how I was now in the Charliverse, I now got it. It clicked for me. Even they were saying to me that, no, I had that moment where I was just listening to like nothing but her for months. So essentially what I'm saying is that hopefully this will happen to you after this video. You will listen to a few songs, you will literally get sucked in, and you won't be able to listen to anything else because everything else will sound inferior. I'm not sorry. Like, I'm not sorry about that. If that's what happens after this video, you're welcome. Charlotte Emma Aitchison was born on the 2nd of August 1992 and raised in Essex. She began to write music from as young as 13 and posted all of her songs onto MySpace. Her songs actually ended up garnering the attention of a local promoter who invited her to perform at some rave clubs at only as young of an age as 14. In 2010, at the age of 18, Charli signed to the record label Asylum Records, who later merged with Elektra Records, who then merged with Atlantic Records, so her label is now Atlantic Records, under the name Charli XCX. The XCX actually doesn't really stand for anything, as Charli's mentioned in multiple interviews. It's actually just a name that she thought sounded cool and looked cool as well. So she'd been doing music for a few years now, and it was around this time that she kind of realized she didn't want to be making the kind of music that was mainstream at the time, and started dabbling in selling her music to other artists, one of which became the iconic hit I Love It by Pop. And if you're in Australia, it became, you know, famously the KFC song. But before that, it got really huge, so huge that it was even number 7 for a while on the Billboard Hot 100.
I thought this fucking song was big in Germany. What the fuck are you doing? Come on!
Charli has actually written numerous songs for very high-profile artists, and some that have gone on to be hits, such as Same Old Love by Selena Gomez and Senorita by Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello. It was actually upon meeting American Grammy Award-winning producer Ariel Reichstad and producing Stay Away together that Charli actually began to understand what she wanted her sound to be. Her first studio album, True Romance, was released in April of 2013, and although the critical reception was overall quite positive, it did not receive a lot of commercial success. The sound of the album has been described as kind of like moody 80s synth pop and goth pop, and although critics and the public alike did have qualms with the quality of the album, at the same time people did start to notice that Charli was somebody who was talented and had something unique and fresh to offer. The following year, however, 2014, was definitely Charli's viral year. That February, the summer bop Fancy by Iggy Azalea, featuring and co-written by Charli XCX, came out, hitting number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, receiving 2 Grammy nominations and going platinum in multiple countries, including Australia and the US. Following this, in June, the certified banger Boom Clap came out, which featured on the Fault in Our Stars soundtrack, peaking at number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 and also going platinum in Australia and the US. So this kind of put Charli at a crossroads where she could either ride the current wave that was happening and become commercially successful as that mainstream pop girly, or create the music that she wanted wanted, which was more experimental and forward-thinking, however, would not be as widely recognized. Still in 2014, in December, she released her second studio album, Sucker. Sucker's sound has been described as colorful power pop, punk pop, 90s throwback. It was generally well received by critics and definitely had way more commercial success than True Romance, selling more than twice as many copies and peaking at number 28 on the Billboard 200. Rolling Stone even deemed it as the 6th best pop album of 2014. So it well and truly seemed like Charli had chosen her path. Enter Sophie, an unbelievably talented and pioneering producer, artist, and DJ from Scotland. Sophie was part of the PC Music label, which was really well known for its futuristic sound and bubblegum bass, and one of the main influences that pushed hyperpop to the forefront. Prior to this, Sophie was uploading her music onto SoundCloud and received wide critical acclaim for her song Bip,
I can make you feel better. And you know you will. And you know where to find me. So
which garnered an even greater following for Sophie's already existing and bursting at the seams talent. Besides Charli XCX, Sophie has gone on to produce for Madonna, Kim Petras, Vince Staples, among many others, and even released 2 albums of her own, so Product in 2015, as well as Oil of Every Pearl's Uninsides in 2018, which actually received a Grammy nomination and also has been featured on multiple Best Album of 2018 as well as Best Album of the Decade, the 2010s lists. I say all of this stuff that's seemingly unrelated to Charli because Sophie actually tragically passed away in January of 2021 and was so influential in Charli finding the self-confidence to produce the music that she wanted. And Sophie also had a massive hand in being able to bring that vision to life, and did so by incorporating her truly unique production style.
I met Sophie and started working with her. That was really the first time I felt like, wow, like Sophie has all of the things I've been trying to find to put with my music, and it just clicked.
Her loss is one that reverberates throughout the whole pop music industry and beyond, and her legacy continues to impact pop today as producers try and emulate her style and push the boundaries the way she did. She was a true visionary. So Sophie and Charli XCX collaborated to create what is now the truly iconic in every sense of the word and cult classic Vroom Vroom EP. Can we have a round of applause for the Vroom Vroom EP? So this was in 2015, and y'all don't understand the power that this EP has on Angels. It is truly mythic. Majority of songs off the Vroom Vroom EP were recorded in only 2 days.
2 days! 2 days!
And its sound has been described as visceral, experimental, futuristic. This EP was frankly just wild in how it divided people and critics alike. Everyone either loved it or found it way too brash. But if you loved it, you were correct and ahead of the curve. Because even now, the naysayers are kind of turning around and realizing just how forward-thinking this EP truly was, and how it paved the way for what we now know as hyperpop, so much so that the infamously scathing review of the Vroom Vroom EP by Pitchfork has actually been retracted by the author. Rightly so. It's such a standout work of hers that is just incredibly innovative and genius in terms of music, but is also just so effortlessly fun and sassy, and just a must listen. Go listen to it. Stop the video right now and go listen to it, honestly. So Charli well and truly found the perfect partners in crime to bring her sound and the music she wanted to create to life in Sophie and the PC Music label.
It just feels really special, and it feels like no one could make the music that we make, and we couldn't make it without each other, and nobody could replicate it. So I think I did know something special was happening, and also it was just so fun. It just felt fun to do it.
A.G. Cook then came on board as her creative director, who is actually the founder of the PC Music label. He's also just an incredibly talented artist and producer in his own right as well. So 2017 is what I consider to be the renaissance period for Miss Charli XCX. It began with her mixtape number 1, Angel, that was released in March. It was described as being very avant-pop, electro-pop, and kind of playful with just these really catchy, memorable hooks. She made this mixtape within 2 weeks, and this mixtape features what would be the start of Charli's many collaborations on an album. The reason why it's kind of a mixtape is because I don't really know the legality or the logistics of it, but mixtapes are kind of easier to release than studio albums, which a lot of work and promo and kind of timing factors into, as well as just like legal stuff. It overall received quite positive reviews, and Rolling Stone even ranked it number 8 as part of their top 20 best pop albums of 2017. Before her next mixtape, however, Charli's anticipated third studio album, which Angels have unofficially titled XCX World, was actually scrapped after it was leaked by fans in August of 2017, among other factors such as her label's treatment of Charli as well. Eljon Macarinas is a YouTuber who has a really in-depth video on this, and that's why I'm not going to go into much detail about this, because honestly his video does such a good job. But essentially a couple of songs did end up getting released from that album as singles. However, one in particular kind of became like a meme among Charli fans, and that was Taxi. However, Charli has recently on her Crash Tour shared why it makes her emotional when fans bring up that song, and it is frankly because it reminds her of Sophie. The reason why I mentioned this album, even though, you know, it technically doesn't exist, but it does on many Google Drives and YouTube videos, is that it's kind of just an urban legend among Charli fans and is kind of a big point of Charli's history as an artist, as its demise only really propelled Charli to make better music in the long run. Her next, and frankly, again, infamous mixtape is Pop 2, that was released in December of 2017. 2017, Charli was on her grind. The sound of this mixtape has been described as eclectic, electro-pop, and almost a new iteration of pop, hence the Pop 2. This was just Charli fully leaning into that experimental side of her, and in her own words, saying, "Fuck playing the game." And God am I thankful she did. I have a message on my phone from another Charli's Angel that I know that perfectly encapsulates how good this mixtape is. Moving on to September of 2019, Charli released her third studio album titled Charli. Its sound has been described as very glossy, as well as catchy but confrontational, and still pushing pop as far as it can go without being off-putting to majority of audiences. This is Charli's quintessential happy medium of her wanting to be that mainstream pop girl, but still staying true to the kind of music she wants to create. Variety was absolutely correct in calling it a mature, fully realized, and downright visionary album. The absolute slay of a single, 1999, featuring Troye Sivan, is definitely one of, if not Charli's most popular song ever, with over 200 million streams on Spotify and over 46 million views on YouTube. 2017 onwards was truly the period where Charli was getting her flowers, because this album too also featured on many best album, best pop album of 2019 lists, and was ranked number 42 on the Billboard 200, and even featured in YouTuber The Needle Drop, aka Anthony Fantano's album of the year. Moving on to my favorite album, and I'm sure many people's, How I'm Feeling Now is Charli's fourth studio album that was released in May of 2020, aka it's kind of like her lockdown quarantine album, if you will. It was created in only 6 weeks, and Charli really utilized and collaborated with her fans over Zoom and Instagram in order to write and produce these songs. Its sound has been described as textural, glitchy, effervescent, vulnerable, and introspective, and I just love how well it captured that period of lockdown and just kind of the mental state and all the emotions that went with it. It's also one of Charli's first projects in a while that features essentially no collaborations. It's just Charli. It's just the album I constantly go back to and can feel all the emotions from start to finish. Once again, the flowers do not stop for Charli, as this album too was featured on many Best Albums of 2020 lists, such as Pitchfork's, Billboard's, and Rolling Stone. It was even shortlisted for the Mercury Prize, which is an annual prize that is awarded to the best album released in the UK by a British or Irish act. And finally, Charli's latest album, Crash, was released in March earlier this year. This album is the last of a 13-year-long record deal. Let that sink in, with her label Atlantic Records. And for Charli, this is definitely the album where she's really trying to milk and sell that mainstream pop girl fantasy. This has divided a lot of people. Some fans are into it, some fans are not. But I mean, firstly, this isn't the point of this video, but if you want my honest opinion, the album slaps. Argue with the wall. The sound has kind of been described as kinetic pop, disco funk, textured dream pop. It's definitely influenced by earlier styles of music like the 70s and 80s. And this album too, it doesn't stop, does it? Has also been featured on Best Album of 2022 so far lists, such as Billboard's Varieties and Rolling Stones. It even debuted at #1 in Australia and the UK. What's next for Charli is honestly very up in the air at the moment, as she's now free from her label and she's currently on her Crash tour. But ultimately, I'm really excited what she comes out with next, because she now has a lot of creative freedom, but who knows what she's going to do with it and where she's going to go. So there you have it. That is Charli 101, XCX 1001, if you will, and you passed. So when trying to kind of, I guess, break down the reasons as to why I love Charli XCX so much and why I think you should take the time and energy to listen to her music and discover her as an artist, like any good consultant, I narrowed it down into 3 easy, mutually exclusive, and collectively exhaustive buckets.
Oh, I'm such a fucking loser.
No one knows what I feel inside.
So when trying to describe Charli XCX's music, the best way that I could do so was to label it as something that I like to call sad twerking.
Baby, I love you bad, 'cause lately you finally understand that maybe this feeling that I found might kill me.
Although her music is, of course, super dancey, upbeat, and I literally feel like I've been shot with adrenaline and dopamine when I listen to it, there's this added layer that give it this extra edge that really basically hits you in the soul. It makes you feel the multifaceted array of emotions that life can make you feel at certain points, where you do feel multiple things at once. And that is just what I really appreciate about a lot of her songs. A song that I could hype myself up to and listen to when getting ready for a night out was also a song that sometimes if I was just feeling really down or feeling a particular way about a situation, that song seemed to articulate what I was feeling. Here, I guess, are 2 examples of songs that really encapsulate this for me personally, whereas for sure there are definitely other songs that also fit this criteria. So firstly is her song How Can I Not Know What I Need Right Now from her deluxe version of her latest album Crash. This song, this chorus is a bop. The chorus is a bop. The chorus is what I sing on the way to and from my 9 to 5, because the chorus is basically just listing out the days of the week. Whereas the verse is basically her talking about how she's struggling with feeling just uncertain about life. If that doesn't hit in your like early 20s, I don't know what does. I find it hard to know of artists or find artists that can hit that duality so well.
Beautiful, look it, look it, look it, look it, look it, look it, unlock it.
Before Charli, I was not aware of hyperpop or any kind of crazily experimental music. For this point, I need to give a bit of context, and I feel like this context not only kind of gives you a bit more insight into like my love for music, but also might be something you can relate to. But I consider myself to be quite passionate about music. So when I was younger, I did piano from the age of 7 and like completed my grade 8 in 2017. I was technically trained with my voice as I was part of the Philharmonic Choir when I was younger. For a period of time there, I also tried my own hand at writing music and composing for piano, as well as just like making little songs on my guitar. I was always that friend who was recommending other friends, artists, and music that I thought they would like. But in college, I just kind of went into a music rut. I just wasn't interested by any of the new music that was coming out. When it came to like my own artists that I really liked, it felt like they were doing very similar music to what they've previously done. I just kind of felt like everything felt a bit stale. And yeah, just kind of fell back into patterns of enjoying what I was already listening to and had been listening to for years. It genuinely took Charli XCX for me to fall back in love with music again, which is such a big, huge part of my life and my identity that I had lost for a few years there. It's funny too because her music is kind of like this living and evolving thing. And I've never really found this with artists until listening to Charli XCX and the kind of artist she exposed me to. But I find that there'll be a song that I listen to by her that initially I'm like, yep, this is an okay song, like it's not my favorite, but whatever. Fast forward to like 2 months later where I'll revisit the song or I'll just kind of listen to it a couple more times and it's my jam. It's like my new favorite Charli XCX song. Such a good example of this is Backstreet, which is the opening song from Pop 2. That song, at first I was like, yep, this is all right, cool song, whatever. Now, it is like my soundtrack to walking through Sydney. It is my soundtrack to the city. I love that song. Whenever I put it on in my headphones, it is literally cranked up to full volume. It's like this really strange evolving thing that I just haven't really come across before in music.
When the sun showed my click running through my mind like a rainbow.
Lastly, Charli's dedication and sheer enjoyment of collaborating with other pioneering artists and developing an interpersonal relationship with them that you can hear in the music makes finding new artists and opening doors to new and different kinds of music so easy. I really admire Charli as an artist for constantly collaborating and working with people who she feels add something to her music and they in turn bring her on their music to collaborate as well. It's very clear that there's this interconnectedness when it comes to hyperpop that is just really wholesome to see and experience as a listener. It's so nice to see that creativity flourish and work together to make new and exciting music. It seems like an appropriate time to, I guess, fangirl a little bit more, but not about Charli XCX. We're going to take a break from her and we're going to fangirl about the artists, some of the artists, a small sample considering how many people she collaborates with, but a small sample of artists that she's introduced me to that I'm now a regular listener of. So firstly, I can't talk about artists that Charli XCX has introduced me to and made me fall in love with and not talk about Christine and the Queens. So she is the artist that also features on and co-wrote Gone, which is, as we've spoken about, my ride or die song when it comes to Charli XCX. I love her voice. She is also the most incredible dancer. Christine and the Queens is such a performer, which is something I really admire about her. And her live performance on Apple Music of Comme Si Se M'aime, that is something that actually like makes me emotional, like watching that performance. Second up is Rina Sawayama, of course. And Rina Sawayama is somebody who really is just critically thinking about their art and how they can elevate it and incorporate different cultural styles. All her songs have some extra meaning to it that you wouldn't think about when you first listen to it.
Now this song is about depression.
The most famous example is Excess, which is about capitalism and over-consumerism. My favorite currently is Catch Me in the Air. Catch Me in the Air is essentially almost like a conversation between a second-generation immigrant daughter and her immigrant mother, and what a complicated relationship that can be.
So catch me in the air.
She essentially brought me back in touch with something that is part of my identity and has been kind of dormant for a long time, and has also gotten me excited about music as an art form and what these people are doing to shape this industry. And she just doesn't get enough credit for what she's done for pop. So before the end of this video, I thought, I've talked about Charli XCX. You're very well versed in the music, the story, my journey, but it doesn't make sense to just let you go without giving you a kind of starter pack or toolkit, if you will, to guide you out into the Charliverse, and so you feel well equipped to understand and appreciate her music.
Yeah. that could make us official. Never hurt me, I'm about to detonate. Pull you close and then I'll be gone. I don't trust myself at all. I see, oh no, I could wish you. Don't make me beg for you, 'cause I'll beg for you.
If you have made it to the end, I honestly cannot thank you enough. I'm so excited for you to have a newfound appreciation or intrigue for this artist that I love so much. The idea that some of you will go away and become Charli fans, or will go away and think more about opening yourself up to different music is just really fulfilling for me. I really don't know what to say. If you've already had a listen to Charli XCX and you don't really like what you're hearing, I guess that's fine. No, but seriously, everyone has different tastes and that is absolutely, of course, fine. But what I do hope is that it's shown you that the music industry is so broad. From this video, even if you don't listen to Charli, you start thinking about listening to maybe some new music that you wouldn't have tried out before, and that you not only give it a one-time try, but you maybe go back to it and listen to it again and not judge it off your initial impression. So if you liked this video, please let me know by giving it a like, because hey, I'm starting out fresh here, so it's always nice to see and get an indication of whether this is the kind of stuff you even like watching. And I would also obviously love it if you decide to subscribe and join the family, because there's definitely more exciting content to come. If you have any cool music suggestions, opinions, or maybe you listen to Charli and now you're obsessed, or you listen to Charli and you don't like her but you like someone else, let me know in the comments. I want to have a discussion. Either way, that is it from me for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and with that,
beep beep, so let's ride, let's ride. Let's